Under the fading glow of the late afternoon sun, the iron gates of the sprawling Aduale estate shimmered like guardians of a world most people could only dream of entering. Yet standing there was a man who looked nothing like a billionaire. His faded navy uniform sagged over his wiry frame. His weathered hands gripped the bars for support, and his cap shaded a face lined with years of experience and loss. To anyone passing, he was just another aging gatekeeper earning his bread through humble work. But behind those lines on his face was Henry Aduale, a man who controlled vast lands, companies scattered across continents, and a fortune few could fathom. Today, however, wealth meant nothing to him. What mattered was his son, David, whose future balanced on a knife's edge. David was engaged to a radiant young woman named Naomi, whose beauty could command a room, but beauty was not what Henry trusted. He had seen men destroyed not by enemies, but by the partners they chose. His late wife once whispered to him that the truest test of character wasn't how someone treated the powerful, but how they treated the invisible. With that wisdom echoing in his soul, Henry conceived a plan. For 1 week, he would abandon his tailored suits and million-dollar aura, disguising himself as a lowly gatekeeper at his own estate. No one but his most trusted aide knew the truth. To Naomi, he would be invisible, unless her heart revealed otherwise. The first days of his experiment unfolded quietly, yet each moment was telling. Naomi arrived in chauffeur-driven cars, her diamond bracelet sparkling as the sun kissed its surface, her perfume leaving a trail of luxury in the air. Henry opened the gates with the dignity of a man who respected even the smallest duties, but Naomi never offered even a glance, let alone a word of acknowledgement. Her phone seemed more deserving of her attention than the man who labored rain or shine to open her path. For Henry, this was not about courtesy alone. It was about glimpsing the soul of the woman about to join his family. He needed to see if kindness lived within her, even in the smallest gestures. Day after day, Naomi's silence became louder than any words could have been. Her beauty was undeniable, but the warmth of a heart was nowhere in sight. Henry waited patiently, telling himself not to leap to conclusions. Sometimes people are distracted, sometimes tired. But he also knew the patterns of people rarely lied. He endured her indifference, his own silence masking the storm brewing in his chest, as the days revealed more of who she truly was. The truth shattered the illusion one evening when Naomi arrived earlier than usual, her crimson dress stark against the ivory estate walls. Irritation marked her steps, frustration etched across her face as she muttered beneath her breath. Henry, in his gatekeeper's posture, opened the gates as he always did, stepping aside with quiet respect. Then, without warning, Naomi stopped in front of him, a plastic bottle in her hand. With a smirk that held no warmth, she tipped the sticky liquid over his head, drenching his cap, staining his shirt, and humiliating the man she believed was beneath her. The laughter that followed wasn't playful. It was sharp, piercing, and cruel, cutting through Henry's heart with a precision more painful than any wound. She walked away as though nothing had happened, her heels clicking against marble, leaving behind the weight of degradation she had imposed on another human being. Henry stood frozen, his uniform clinging to his damp skin, but what clung heavier was the memory of his late wife's words. You see a soul most clearly in how it treats those who can give nothing in return. That single act revealed Naomi's heart more clearly than months of pleasantries could have. Yet Henry did not confront her at once. He was a man of patience, and patience would reveal if cruelty had been a fleeting slip or the essence of her nature. In the days that followed, Henry observed Naomi carefully, the sting of humiliation still alive but tempered by resolve. He waited for remorse, for a whisper of apology, for any glimmer of decency that might suggest her behavior had been a mistake. But Naomi never acknowledged her actions, never looked his way with even the faintest hint of regret. Instead, she seemed to grow more dismissive, more entitled, brushing past him as if he were furniture rather than flesh and blood. Each gesture of neglect pressed deeper into Henry's conscience, convincing him of the truth his son could not yet see. It weighed on him heavily, the knowledge that David was bound to someone whose love was a castle built on sand. Yet Henry also knew that truth delivered without care could wound more than it healed. He resolved to wait until the right moment, to reveal himself not in anger but in clarity, so that David might understand not just the act, but the heart behind his father's intervention. Every night, Henry lay awake replaying his late wife's wisdom, torn between a father's instinct to protect and the dread of breaking his son's heart. The moment of truth arrived when Henry decided his masquerade had run its course. Shedding the faded uniform, he returned to the tailored suit that had once been his armor in boardrooms and banquets, his presence restored to that of the man who commanded empires. He summoned Naomi and David to the grand hall, its marble floors gleaming under chandeliers that bore witness to generations of Aduale history. David came confused, unaware of what was to unfold, while Naomi entered with her usual confidence, only for her eyes to widen when Henry appeared. No longer the slouched gatekeeper, he now radiated quiet authority, a man whose gaze could pierce through pretenses. With calm composure, Henry recounted the days he had stood by the gates, invisible in her eyes until he became an object of ridicule. The silence that followed his words was crushing, the kind of silence that bore weight as though the very walls were listening. David's hand slipped slowly from Naomi's grasp, his trust unraveling as Henry's account laid bare her cruelty. Naomi stammered, tried to dismiss her act as a joke, a moment of stress, but excuses fell like broken glass, sharp and unconvincing. The truth hung in the air, undeniable and damning. Henry did not rage, nor did he humiliate her further. He simply spoke a truth that echoed louder than any accusation. Love without respect is a castle built on sand. The words resonated, unshakable and final. In that hall, beneath the chandeliers and echoes of heritage, David understood what his father had done. The engagement ended not with a dramatic storm, but with the quiet collapse of a foundation that had never been strong. Naomi's beauty and charm could not mask the emptiness within, and Henry, though sorrowful for his son's pain, knew he had saved him from a greater devastation. David was heartbroken, but heartbreak is a wound that time can heal, unlike the lifelong prison of a loveless union. In that moment, the bond between father and son, though tested, was ultimately strengthened by the painful truth revealed in silence and dignity rather than fury. Months passed, and as seasons turned, David's heart began to heal. Time, patience, and the quiet wisdom of his father guided him toward a new beginning. It was then he met a woman whose kindness illuminated every room brighter than jewels could ever shine. She was not dazzled by wealth nor blinded by status. When introduced to the real gatekeeper of the estate, she extended her hand warmly and thanked him sincerely for his work. a gesture that cost nothing but revealed everything. Henry, watching from a distance, saw in her the qualities his late wife had once cherished: humility, respect, and genuine compassion. For the first time in months, the heavy weight that had rested on Henry's chest lifted. He listened to David's laughter with her in the gardens, a laughter free of pretense and built on trust, and in that sound Henry found peace. Henry's story is more than the tale of a wealthy man testing a future daughter-in-law. It is a mirror reflecting timeless truths about love, respect, and the human heart. Appearances deceive, wealth can shield or distort, but character always reveals itself. In disguising himself as a man of little means, Henry uncovered more than Naomi's disdain. He proved that kindness is not situational but foundational. A person's soul is not measured by how they shine under chandeliers, but by how they treat the hands that open gates, serve tables, or stand silently by their side. In a world obsessed with appearances, Henry's act was a reminder that dignity is never in titles, cars, or diamonds, but in the way we value others. His journey teaches us that protecting those we love sometimes means wounding them with truth, but truth delivered in love is the shield that saves. And so, Henry Aduale's legacy was not only in his wealth or empire, but in a choice to guard his son not with fortune, but with wisdom, ensuring that the future rested on kindness and respect rather than deception and disdain. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like the video and subscribe so you never miss more powerful stories like this. Share it with someone who believes true love is built on respect and kindness. And in the comments, let us know, was Henry right to test Naomi's heart?